okay, now we're going to go to Mississippi, and I want you to indulge me by suspending your disbelief and perceiving me as a young man who's so eager to get that first car that he falls in love with one that nobody wants anything to do with. Water and fire. I really needed that car, but there's no redeeming it now. I can't say I wasn't warned, though, because I was, and plenty. Bad mojo, my brother Raz said. Who could even drive that thing after what happened in it? Melinda demanded. The look on her face told me she'd never set foot in it, much less climb in the back seat with me. The salesman seemed mighty nervous, too. When I dragged him to the far corner of the lot where it was parked and told him I wanted to test drive it, he narrowed his eyes and asked me if I was sure, then walked away to fetch the keys. I saw him shaking his head as he went, and then I saw him jerk his head toward where I was standing, and he and the manager both shook their heads. But they wanted to get rid of it, so pretty soon the salesman was back, keys in hand. He started to open the driver's door and then stopped, tossing the keys over the top. You take it, I'll wait here. I walked around to the driver's side and scooted past the salesman, who seemed stuck in place, just staring at me as if he thought I was crazy. Maybe I was crazy, but I couldn't have known that then. I thought I was being mighty clever to get a vintage car for a fraction of what it was worth, just because some guy passing through town last year dumped a body out of it down by Tarns Creek. Somehow, the turquoise and white 59 LeSabre had ended up back here on Bill Davidson's car lot after the 10-month investigation and the big trial over in Shinville. They should have sent it way across the country where no one knew what it was, but here it sat, and I wanted it. I didn't care about the car's past. Heck, it wasn't the car's fault, and the person hadn't actually died in it anyway. The LeSabre had just been a getaway car for the killer, a sweet last ride for the poor victim. And now here I was, about to lay claim to the best deal in Mississippi. We completed the transaction in short order, and I could have kicked myself after I took the keys and drove my new beauty off the lot. If I'd offered half of what I did, I bet I could still have driven away in it. But no matter, she was mine now. I left the custom radio office. I drove up one block and down the next, just so I could hear her purr. She smelled strong, though, like a woman who'd splashed on way too much perfume. So I pulled over to the curb on Puckett Avenue to crank all the windows down. While I was stopped, I remembered the mini dream catcher I had brought along to put on the rearview mirror. I pulled it out of my pocket and hung it up. Rat once told me it looked foolish to hang a dream catcher anywhere but over a bed. Said it showed me to be a pretendian for sure. I didn't care, though. I took my information from Mama Pete, not Rat. She knew our true heritage. She said we were going to get back on the path that was lost way before the Civil War, and that she was bound and determined to bring us up in the true ways of our distant Chickasaw ancestor and all the ancestors before him. So if Mama Pete said it was fine to hang that little dream catcher, then by golly, it was fine. I pulled around the corner onto Tucker and slid my baby up in front of Melinda's house and beat the horn. Melinda pulled her living room curtains back far enough to peek out. I could tell she was glaring. I leaned all the way over to the passenger door to tempt her to come on out, but when I looked back up, she wasn't at the window anymore. After waiting a few minutes, I gave up and made my slow way home. When I got there, Rat, Raynell, and Daisy came running out to see, and Rat said he didn't believe I'd really done it. I could see in his eyes that he meant it. Mama Pete stepped out onto the front porch, all suspicious and squint-eyed. She stood at the top of the porch stairs, looking for all the world like an oversized terrapin, moving her head back and forth in disbelief. J.G., I told you, hon. I told you not to go spending your good money on that abomination. And now here you are, parking it in my yard. We're for sure going to have to cleanse this thing. steps closer, looking as if she was about to pull a crucifix and a garland cloak out of her coveralls. By now, Maisie was standing behind the car, eyeing it with what looked an awful lot like envy. Rat and Raynell were getting brave and starting to open doors and poke their heads inside. Right about the time Maisie yanked open the right rear passenger door, little Asher came tearing around the side of the house, snot and drool dripping down onto his t-shirt, his tan corduroy drawers drooping like plumber pants. Car! Asher took a flying leap onto the back seat and stood there, clapping his hands. Mama Pete covered the distance between the porch and that car faster than you'd think a body her size could even move. The way she crouched down ever so slightly reminded me of a lioness moving in for the kill. Mama Pete snatched her cub out of harm's way and strode back to the porch. J.G., that does it. If you're going to make your whole family put up with the sight of this thing, at least we're going to smudge it proper. Right now. Mama Pete scooted back inside after shouting orders to everyone but me. Rat headed off down the road to the clearing by the river where Mama Pete liked to do ceremony. We lived almost at the end of the dead-end street, and the river wasn't 100 yards away from the end of it. A makeshift dirt ramp ran all the way to the water, and Mama Pete's clearing was off to one side. Rat's job was to gather wood and kindling for a bonfire, and to make sure I'd have room to pull the car through. Raynell and Maisie took off in the opposite direction, knocking on doors and asking all the neighbors to come add their good energy to the cleansing ceremony. It took them a long time because they had to keep explaining what we were up to and why. Mom and Pete wanted everyone to bring whatever instruments they had on hand, plus folding chairs if they wanted. Some folks asked if they could bring some soda or beer, and Raynell and Maisie told them, sure, why not? By the time everyone was invited, and Rat was back all hot and sweaty from fixing the fire pit and clearing the circle, Mama Pete was standing on the porch all dressed up in her makeshift regalia, a big brown fringed dress and a white feathery shawl she had made herself. She looked almost pretty, a blonde Amazon standing on the porch with her medicine drum. I could tell she was raring to go get the job done because she couldn't seem to stand quite still and kept looking down the road, watching for folks to get there. I just wanted to get the whole thing over with and mainly hoped Mama Pete's stage would get rid of the perfumey smell in the car. Neighbors started to arrive, most with chairs and coolers, and everyone with some kind of music or noisemaker. Mama Pete had Raynell and Maisie keep all of them away from the driveway while I backed a saber up and eased her onto the road. Once I had her pointed toward the river, Mama Pete walked up behind and started a steady rhythm on her medicine drum. Next came Rat and Raynell, and then Maisie pulling Asher in his red wagon. 20 or so neighbors followed us down the road, some tentatively joining Mama Pete with their instruments. I had my windows down, and I could hear a flute and a trombone. I could have sworn I was also hearing a kazoo and even a toy xylophone, and I thought I heard a spoon on a tin pan ringing up the rear. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw our catty-corner neighbors, a household of deadnecks who always trimmed each other's hair with pinking shears, walking off to each side with the hand drums. They sounded good, but the rhythm of everything, set by Mama Pete's medicine drum, was so slow it sounded like a dirge. I pulled on down the street and onto the dirt ramp, then veered off to the left, steering clear of the fire Rat already had going. As I parked my beautiful Buick between the fire pit and the riverbank, I started to feel a little excited. I thought maybe Mama Pete was right about smudging the car. Maybe that would sort of sanctify it and get rid of any bad mojo. Maybe it would even put Melinda's mind at ease. I climbed out, not knowing where to stand or what to do. As the neighbors arrived in the clearing, Mama Pete motioned for them to form a wide circle around me, the car, and the fire. She passed her medicine drum to Raynell, exchanging it for a leather purse that held a white sage bundle, a feather, a shell, and a lighter. She broke off a few stems of sage and lit it, then walked around the circle, smudging each person in turn. Some people understood what was happening, but others looked mighty uncomfortable about it. I knew for a fact that at least half of these folks were Baptist or Church of Christ, and I was surprised they'd even agreed to come, much less allow themselves to get sucked into a heathen ritual. But to my amazement, not a single soul bolted and ran when Mama Pete waved the smoke all down their fronts and backs. There were a few nervous giggles, but that was about it. Then Mama Pete walked up to me, smudged me good, and sent me over to sit on a big stump near the fire pit. Ralph's fire was getting bigger by the minute with all the logs and big branches he kept fitting onto it, and pretty soon my back felt downright hot. It was August anyway, so the last thing I needed was to be dry roasted at my own cause sanctifying. Steam cooked would be a better description, I guess, because the only thing soggier than a southern summer day is a southern summer evening, and that's how late it was getting by that time. From where I sat, I could see the glimmer of the river through the trees and underbrush, and I just wanted to run past Mama Pete, the circle of neighbors, and into my pretty new car, and just yank off my clothes and jump in. I could almost feel that cool current gliding over my body, but I made myself stay put. Mama Pete walked slowly around the car, smudging over and under, stopping it every so often to clear an energy blockage. She knew it was okay to move on again when the smoke rose straight up. Raynell followed close behind, lighting fresh sage whenever the pungent cloud got too thin. At first, everyone was quiet, except for the occasional pop and whoosh of a soda can or beer bottle being opened. The only sounds were the cicadas and tree frogs and the light tapping of the river against the rocks on the bank. Then someone whispered, "We should sing something." And then a shaky soprano started up with Kumbaya. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see people starting to sway, some with eyes closed. I was mighty moved by the sight of it. These good people were really getting into the spirit of faith, and all to make sure nothing bad would happen to me in my new car. As Mama Pete did her work, the voices got louder, mostly with Sunday school songs, and a few folk hymns like All My Trials and Amen. One of the deadheads pulled out a guitar and started up Ripple, which fit perfectly with the mood, but not many people knew it. When he moved from there into Friend of the Devil, Mama Pete turned around and shot him a look, so he quit, and someone jumped right in with Silent Night. Mama Pete opened the front doors of the car and leaned in, waving the smoke over the dashboard, steering wheel, and beautiful mirror. I was proud I put my little dream hat on already. Then she opened the back doors and climbed halfway onto the back seat. She spent a long, long time going over it again and again. Then she started to wiggle her rear end a little, and it looked like she might be stuck. Danged if that wasn't the case. When I said earlier that Mama Pete was large, I didn't mean women's 3X large. I meant men's big and tall, extra, extra, extra large. And now she was trying to back herself out of my car, and it just wasn't happening. Several of us saw her predicament and ran over to push and pull. When she was finally free of the car, she did a little victory dance while everyone laughed and clapped. That was pretty much the end of the ceremony, and Mama Pete walked to the nearest cooler to grab herself a beer. It looked like this would be a pretty good happening from this point on. I figured we'd all be there till midnight or later, talking and singing and having a good time. Someone left to drive into town for a couple buckets of fried chicken, and another guy said he'd be right back with plenty more soda and beer. It was going to be a special night, all right, by the river with all the neighbors coming together on my account, and everyone getting along and happy. And then I saw it. Mama Pete had left the doors open when she escaped from the back seat, and now I could see smoke curling out from both sides. I rubbed my eyes, hoping it was just my imagination or some stray smoke from the bonfire, but no. I could see little flames licking the top of the seat and realized that in the struggle to free herself, Mama Pete must have dropped some smoldering sage onto that old upholstery. I jumped up, knocking over my tree stump and almost stumbling into the bonfire. I looked around for water, blankets, anything to save my precious car. By the time I grabbed someone's ice-filled cooler, the whole interior was engulfed in smoke and flame. I started to run forward with the cooler, but our next-door neighbor pulled me back by the shirt. "Hang on, son. That thing's liable to blow." No sooner were the words out of his mouth than the fire hit the tires, creating a sonic boom that had every man, woman, and child running for cover. When that conflagration died down, it was clear that the car was way beyond saving. We all stood around at a respectful distance, watching my beautiful sedan become a burned-out hulk, ugly, charred, and metal in the middle of the clearing. That river's worth of water nearby couldn't help a damn thing. It just pushed on by, oblivious to the little tragedy that had just unfolded a stone's throw from its banks. When it was all over, Rat put a few more logs on the bonfire, offered around the chicken and white rolls that had arrived in the meantime. Mama Pete stood off to one side, her head bowed low as if she was studying something on her foot. I wondered if she was crying, but couldn't bring myself to go see. I was the one hurting now, and I didn't have much consolation to offer the person who had caused the whole thing. I opened up a beer and took a drumstick, but I couldn't swallow well enough to eat it. My black lab ladle sauntered over and put his head in my lap, either trying to comfort me or hoping for a bite of that drumstick. After a while, folks started gathering their things and picking up their instruments. A few came over and offered condolences, but most just looked in my direction and gave a quick, sympathetic nod, as if paying their respects. Instead of wandering off a few at a time, they formed up a parade line, just the way they had come. I heard them moving off, instruments being played even slower this time. Someone flipped on a flashlight and started singing "This Little Light of Mine." Only Rat and Ladle stayed with me while the bonfire burned down. It was a quiet night, all right, and one I'll never forget if I live to be 100. It took about a week for Mama Pete to look me in the eyes, and when she finally did, she didn't even apologize for setting my car on fire. She just said that things happen for a reason. I turned around and walked away to go sit by the river and figure out how to get me